Welcome to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studios. We continue to celebrate all the amazing people across this wonderful state who are working so hard in the trenches to make this such a great place to live, work, and play. Hey, I've got a great guest today. We're going to spend as much time as we possibly can with the Attorney General for Mississippi, Lynn Fitch. But before we do, I just got a quick comment to make about Hurricane Helene and what people are observing. And, in a lot of ways, our experience in Mississippi as it relates to Hurricane Katrina is very similar to what the folks in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene are having to deal with. The aspects of various aspects of the way the disaster has sort of unfolded, certainly that's different. But in terms of the pain and agony and emotions and the smells and the thought that how are we ever going to get ourselves out of this, and the fact that Helene happens in the wake of so much happening on the international scale. You think about the economic situation. You've got a union strike that's unfolding at the ports, and what that impact is going to be. A war in the Middle East that continues to ramp up. The presidential race. It is so difficult to keep America's focus on the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, but boy, we need to keep our focus on it because it is unbelievable. You think about a Category 4 storm hitting the west coast of the state of Florida, and then think of it this way: 1,000-mile tornado with the torrential rains that caused unprecedented flooding. If you think about these beautiful mountain towns, man, we've all been there. If you've been to Gatlinburg or to the mountains coming out of Asheville, you know these towns. You drive along these roads where these beautiful creeks, and you get out of your car and you go stand on these creek beds and watch this beautiful water flowing. These creeks became raging rivers, and they are literally like veins that go through the heart of these mountain towns and these mountain communities. And you're talking about probably thousands of miles of roads, mountain roads, some of them gravel roads. The roads are gone, and the dirt underneath the roads are gone. I mean, the unprecedented rebuilding effort that's going to have to take place is going to be, it's just almost unfathomable, just as it was unfathomable after Hurricane Katrina. A lot of the attention went to New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina, so we know what it looks like to have the worst natural disaster in American history, but also at the same time to have to scream to get people's attention to us. One other quick comment: 4 days after Hurricane Katrina, the headline in the Sun Herald read, "Help us now." Just huge headline, "Help us now." The reason for that was that it takes time for the federal government and relief agencies and everyone to sort of get their head around it. But then once they do, the cavalry comes. I really hate when we politicize disasters, to be honest with you. I think that I got the opportunity to work very closely with President Bush. I think he was unfairly criticized at the beginning of Katrina because the reality was he was still trying to get his head around it. But once he got his head around it, he came to coastal Mississippi 12 times. And I was in many of those meetings with him where he had legal pads and writing copious notes and working closely with Haley Barbour. There was something to observe. And then, of course, we've got the situation now as it unfolds. It will be very interesting to see how this administration comes to the aid of these communities that need it. So we'll be talking a lot more about that as we go forward. Just wanted to share that. I really feel for the people of the Southeast who are having to go through this. So now let's shift gears and move over to the Mississippi Attorney General Lynn Fitch. It's been a while since she and I have spent some time together, but I look forward to visiting with her today. Lynn, how are you doing?
Doing great. Thank you. Thanks for having me on the show. And I do want to follow up about what you're talking about with Hurricane Helene. Prayers go out to those individuals, loss of life, the devastation. We continue to give them support. And as you said, we've survived this. We are the survivors from Katrina. And so we understand what's happening to those individuals, the devastation, economic loss, certainly the loss of life. It's just unbelievable. So we completely are supportive and want to be helpful from our state. We certainly received that type of response as we experienced it. And now I know in our state, we're all trying to do whatever we possibly can to help those in need. So continued prayers and uplifting for all of those that were in the pathway and that have been harmed by Helene.
Yeah, listen, I talk about it here on the show a lot, but what floods and tornadoes and hurricanes and droughts and all these natural disasters that we've had to deal with in Mississippi have revealed about Mississippi our character. And that in those moments, politics don't really matter. You know, we reach out to our neighbors and we help our neighbors, and we understand what resilience really means. Resilience means the ability to bounce back. I remember well, someone said that one of the most important things we learned after Hurricane Katrina is that buildings don't make a community, the people do. So in the aftermath of a disaster, you really get to see what is in the heart and soul of people. In the case of Mississippi, it's made us stronger. It's made us more resilient. It's really given us a sense of a positive sense of our fellow human beings, you know, and they're going to see that in North Carolina and in Tennessee and South Carolina and Georgia and all the other communities that are impacted. I'll say one other thing. After Hurricane Katrina, the North Carolina Baptist men were in coastal Mississippi rebuilding homes years after Hurricane Katrina. Listen to me, years after Hurricane Katrina. Then North Carolina has gone out of their way to help Mississippi, and we need to keep that in our minds as we think about digging deep in our pockets to help them in this moment. Samaritan's Purse and many other organizations are there on the ground filling gaps. And find the organization you trust, you know, reach deep into your pocket and make a contribution. But, you know, Mississippians are very resilient people, aren't we, Lynn?
We truly are, and we're very strong. We rise to the occasion, and we're there for one another. And that, again, speaks to our character, who we are in the tapestry of the state of Mississippi.
Hey, listen, the last time we talked a lot about human trafficking. We can certainly get into some of that here in just a minute. You've got a big campaign that's happening now, One Pill Can Kill. And, I mean, it's unbelievable what the drug epidemic is doing in America today. There's just a lot we can talk about. But before we do, I just thought I'd start with this. You've been Attorney General for a while now. When you get up in the morning, what do you most look forward to about the work that you do?
Well, you know, I'm very blessed, Ricky. I have an amazing team I get to work with. And so we come to everyday work and we're like, how are we going to help somebody? What difference are we going to make? And so, you know, this is such a complex office. It touches everybody's lives in some way, some form or fashion. So we really embrace how we have our legal representation, but we also embrace how we help those in need from a very compassionate side, because there are so many victims. There's so many people in need across our state. So we truly are the guardians of the rule of law, and we live it. And at the end of the day, we go, wow, what do we do today? How do we make a difference? How do we step into that case? How do we help that victim? How do we help that child in need, that trafficking victim? And we look for ways to be very proactive. And I think that speaks again to the magnitude of this office, always looking for ways to empower and uplift those who need us the most.
For people who really don't know what the Attorney General's office does, how do you describe the office to people?
Well, for sure, it is the premier law firm and certainly the largest law firm in the state of Mississippi. Also, highly concentrated with our law enforcement. Certainly, that's a huge part of our agency and how we respond through our certified law enforcement officers, our investigators. Again, those go together time and time again. So it's important to mesh all that. Then again, look across at how our victims need to be lifted up. That's a big issue. It is very, like I said, it's the most complex agency in state government. We're there to represent and to help those, again, that need us most, but also to represent the state on every level.
Listen, this is not typically a political show, but hard not to have a conversation with you and not think about the Roe decision and how it literally affected the nation. And I was doing some research this morning. I saw in Newsweek they did a story about you, and alluded to being on the Time 100 list right after that, leading, as they said, the final charge against Roe, and going on from there. But when you look back on all that, I mean, the incredible role that you and your office played in that incredible decision, how do you reflect on it today? Do you see the enormity of it? I mean, does it touch you almost every day in some way or another? Talk about that.
Well, thank you. Yes, I mean, certainly very humbling. The team and I and all the partners across the country here in the state of Mississippi, when we received that case, we absolutely knew we were going to move forward with it. And the real question was, it should be determined by every state. We knew the laboratory for democracy, everybody would behave differently in each state, and that's exactly what's happening. But again, that is giving the opportunity now as we've moved forward from that decision in the last 2 years to go, well, what are we going to do? Certainly with the Dobbs case, and now we're in the Dobbs era, we also said we would take responsibility and accountability and the things that we would do moving forward. So here in the state of Mississippi, we actually have, and now it's been such a stronghold on things that we could do and give to others.
Let's do this. Hey, let's do this, Lynn. We're coming to the end of the segment together with Attorney General Lynn Fitch. When we get back, we'll pick up right there and continue the conversation. We'll see you after this break.
Perfect.
Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show, visiting with the Attorney General for the state of Mississippi, Lynn Fitch. And when we went to break, we were talking about the role that Mississippi and specifically the Attorney General's office played in the Supreme Court case, Roe versus Wade. And you were expanding on that. So I just wanted to give you an opportunity to finish your thoughts about it.
Absolutely. It's an extremely critical case, certainly affected our state nationwide. We knew it looked different in every state, but we asked for the job. We asked through our case, to empower women and to protect life. And so when we said we were ready for the job, we have been in Mississippi. The Empowerment Project is what we've been working on, what we created after the decision. So we're excited about that. The Empowerment Project's got 5 pillars, basically, that we have many things, facets that we work off of that. But the Empowerment Project is to make families strong, to lift up women. We saw several different areas. First of all, we need to have quality, affordable, accessible child care in our state. We need to have workplace flexibility options. We need to keep these young parents in the workforce. They need to continue to be a part of the state of Mississippi. We certainly looked at child support, and we said, we need to strengthen that system because those children deserve to have the payments coming in from their non-custodial parent. And that it was a system that is suffering right now. Getting resources to our pregnancy resource centers to make sure that young women had opportunities, resources, tools, opportunities to be upskilled, and certainly to take a hard look at how we could fix our broken adoption and foster care systems. Heavy items, important ones that, again, as Mississippians, we are rising to the challenge to make a difference. We've gotten a lot of legislation that's been passed. It's been very beneficial. Different things, foster parents' Bill of Rights, tax credits for adoption, child care. We're continuing to work with our CPS partners to streamline and change the laws for adoption and foster care. And then a new program, we call it MAMA. And today actually is the anniversary of MAMA that was created by the legislature. And MAMA is extremely important. It is an acronym for Mississippi Access to Maternal Assistance. Now, Ricky, it's great. You can go on the website, you can download the app, and it's very user-friendly. Go on, make a difference. You can see if you need financial assistance, if you're that young mother, if you're looking for a job, if you need resources. We've had over 13,000 visits through the app or the website for people here in Mississippi. And again, it's not new. It's public resources on this same site, private resources, and faith-based. Everybody coming together. So you could click on the coast, see where you might need some help, and go right to it and see all these resources. We've been able to help young women get jobs. They might need diapers, or they just might need a toddler seat, whatever the case might be. And so it's exciting. I think a number of states are looking to Mississippi. We're always happy to share what we've been doing in Mississippi and the Empowerment Project to other states, because again, we asked for the job and we're leading the charge on it.
Lynn, when I was publisher, obviously before and after in social media, I have a strong sense of what it looks like when we take a strong editorial opinion, or maybe we make some change with our newspaper. Certainly, I saw it later in my career as we were getting more into the digital media side of what we were doing. But anytime that you're involved in an issue that has a lot of controversy around it, especially in the social media world, you better vote your conviction, because the feedback you're going to get is going to be both positive and negative. And it can make doing work in a public role, which I had as a publisher, which you have as Attorney General, can make it almost unbearable if you didn't have a strong belief in what you're doing. Is it your strong belief in what you're doing that guides you through this, that keeps you propped up, even though you have to deal with a lot of negativity for people who are opposed to your point of view and opposed to the leadership that you've taken as it relates to Roe versus Wade? How do you stay up about it?
Well, you're exactly right. You know, when you make these hard choices and decisions in governance, that there will be a lot of people that are very excited about the pathway you're going, and then you'll certainly have some negativity. But exactly what you said, it always goes back to your core values and the principles and upholding those and believing in the future. And for us, for me, again, doing the right thing. And now we see, looking in 2 years into it, oh my goodness, we've been able to help a lot of young mothers. We've taken a holistic approach. We're looking at different ways to get legislation passed, new programs, things that we can really wrap our hands around and see that we've made a difference in these children's lives, in these women's lives, in families' lives that maybe would have never gotten to this point had we not had the new Dobbs era to be in. So that's why it's so exciting to lead the charge. I'm always excited to talk about the Empowerment Project. We're continuing to add to that resources, opportunities. And when you see that woman that you've helped, or you see that child, or we talk about the adoption system, we work on foster parents, and people are coming to the table and bringing resources. That's what it's all about. That's where we're changing lives, one life at a time, and we're excited to be a part of that.
We're changing lives and saving lives. Look, I'm my fan. We're Catholic, and so our strong beliefs about abortion are what they are. And it's amazing to me that in the midst of a big presidential race like we're dealing with today, that we would even be debating late-term abortions. I mean, I can't, I'm a former paramedic, so I've been in scenarios where kids were born ahead of time, and they went on to live wonderful lives. How in the world can we have debates about late-term abortion and some people about any abortion? Let's be clear, but late-term especially, and people see no problem with that. How do you get your head around that?
That's really hard to have any understanding along those lines, to see those potential lost lives. And I'll tell you, I've talked to some survivors who actually were those individuals that made it through. And to think that somebody stepped in and saved them, and just know that there are people out there really wanting to do the right thing, that should never be happening in the late term at all. So I think we have to continue to be there, be strong, be engaging, supporting women, doing the different things that we can to help them to have that confidence, that empowerment that we can move forward with. On the women's empowerment, just how we've wrapped our heads around and hands, how we can help women, lift them up. For the first time a month ago, we had the Women's Summit. And, it was important to talk about, like we're talking about right now, issues that are important to women. And so, again, I think that's another opportunity that propelled us into the first Women's Summit in the state of Mississippi. And, we had about 400 women attend there, Ricky, and it was great to have women leaders, trailblazers, to talk about how every woman could be affected, what you could do in your own personal life, what your space was, what's your personal development plan, how did you see yourself, next year, how could you network with one another. So it kind of leads from, that's where we were, but look where we're going in the state of Mississippi, having a women's summit along those lines. And there were a lot of conversations with business leaders. Ashley Fortenberry was one of our panelists. We had Carla Ty, who's the Mississippi Children's Advocacy Center. We had the Colonel of the Air Force Reserve, Ada Collier, the head of UMMC, Dr. Woodward, and the list goes on. And it was exciting because we were talking about women's issues. We were talking about being there for one another and how important our voice is in the state of Mississippi in everything that we do.
Yeah, I saw a headline recently, and it kind of blows my mind. I talked to Michael Watson a little bit about this last week, but you would think that being an American citizen, of course, that one vote and an ID to prove that you're that voter that, one vote, one person, and also that person being a citizen would not be a controversial conversation, to be honest with you. But you look at here, it says this is an analysis. This is from Yahoo News. If there's one thing Mississippi politicians love, is limiting voter access. It's just, does that make you crazy when you see stuff like that?
Well, you just know you're going to get those type of liberal hits all the time. And it's unfortunate because when people see us, they visit us, they go, wow, Mississippi is an incredible place. And the people are amazing. And we get wrongfully hit with headlines like that all the time.
It is great. You look at the headlines, big pharma issues, fentanyl cases growing. There's no shortage of issues for your organization to have to face, but I think one of the most concerning is the fentanyl crisis. It's scary, isn't it?
It is. It's unbelievable. It's here. And we, again, have to stand up, fight this together. The cartels, we're all border states right now. The drugs are coming right across those borders. They're in the state of Mississippi within 48 hours. And we just have to talk about it because people are losing their lives. People are losing loved ones because the fentanyl is here. And it is lethal. There's no question about it.
Hey, let's do this. When we get on the other side, I want to talk about your campaign, and we'll continue some discussion about how bad the fentanyl issue is and the relationship to an open border. I mean, why can't we see that direct connection? We'll continue our conversation with Attorney General of Mississippi, Lynn Fitch. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show. We're having the opportunity to visit with the Attorney General for the state of Mississippi, Lynn Fitch. And it's always good to catch up and see what her office is involved in. When we went to break there, we're talking about fentanyl. And listen, I know that any parent of a child who could make a bad decision, any parent of a child that could make a bad decision, probably loses sleep at night about this subject. The way that fentanyl has, the exponential increase in the use and deployment of illegally, of course, fentanyl across the United States is more than troubling. The number of deaths continue to grow. It's the relationship to fentanyl and the open border. I mean, isn't it just completely undeniable, Lynn, at this stage of the game?
Absolutely. It's alarming. Those drugs are coming across the border freely, and then they're in our respective states. And the harm is unbelievable because remember, it's a synthetic, inexpensive opioid. They send it in powder. They lace it in different counterfeit drugs. They put it in marijuana, everything. And it is lethal. And so it's causing great damage to not only our state, but our country. I mean, last year alone, there were 112,000 deaths from fentanyl overdose. In the state of Mississippi, we lost 258 of our loved ones due to fentanyl overdose. Many of those parents I talked to, it's so sad, it's so alarming, and it should never happen. So we said, you know what, here in Mississippi, we're going to continue to fight it, certainly here in the AG's office with all of our many partners, our outlets like you for outreach to talk about it. And so we have the One Pill Can Kill initiative. We've been out on a number of our college campuses talking about it, explaining what can happen, how to use Narcan, how do you test with the fentanyl test strips. We were just recently in the Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College campus, again, talking to our students, talking to the faculty, all the administrators, because we've got to stand strong with our law enforcement because it's here and it's something that if we don't, we're going to see the death toll rise. So for us, One Pill Can Kill is important. We've given out thousands and thousands of fentanyl harm prevention kits because we want people to understand. Here's how you should determine if this is a counterfeit pill. But remember, they're lethal. If you touch it, you too could have that and go through your skin. So you got to dispose of it properly. You've got to be able to understand, the lethality of that drug. And then we're working with our law enforcement because they're at such risk now. You can no longer go in if someone's having an episode where you need Narcan and can't give CPR because if they've got fentanyl on them, then it could be on the law enforcement officer. So we're training our law enforcement officers. We've got the fentanyl strike force team. We've made a couple of big busts already, directly coming across from the border, 76,000 pills we found in Meridian, 112 pounds of powder, guns, 2 pill presses. And that's just in one operation. So we know it's out there.
Yeah, what do we not know? What do we not know about? And, a lot of these situations, these 258, is that I remember the number correctly, but of those deaths, this is someone hands someone a pill and says, hey, take this. I mean, in some cases, that it's as simple as that. But I love this one pill can kill. Is that a national campaign, or is that something you guys developed here in Mississippi?
It is actually in other states. We work with our DEA partners, but that's significant because, as you said, that's the reality. So if you can get people to understand, if that student says, I just need to get this pill to get through this exam, and then we lost them. And the parents are devastated and the children don't understand. So we have to talk about how lethal fentanyl is, how that if you get it from somebody, you very well run the risk it's going to be laced with fentanyl. And you never know if you're going to get a lot of the fentanyl that's going to kill you or just a little bit. And the cartels, quite frankly, don't care. It's a money draw for them.
Woo, that's a hard one, man. It's also extremely scary. I mean, to think that fentanyl is on college campuses and maybe it's in high schools even. That's scary for you to think about, isn't it?
It is. But again, we know that the more we can have outreach, the more we can make people aware of the significance of fentanyl. We can be supportive of our law enforcement, whether it's in our college campuses, our community college campuses, our high schools, our different groups, to have the conversation. And if we can save one life, we've made a difference. If we've got a lot of the dorms, different schools are putting up the fentanyl test strips and Narcan that you can get, in that hopes that if that happens, somebody tests that drug or somebody uses that Narcan and saves that friend or that peer that might be experiencing an episode of overdose. So we do know that's coming. And one of the things we've also talked about coming across the border is human trafficking. And, the drugs and the trafficking go hand in hand because so many of these trafficked victims are addicted, because to do what they have to do 24/7, they're on some type of drug for the most part, because it's horrific what they're doing day in and day out. So you see all this mesh together, Ricky, and you know how significant and how harsh it is. And, it's on us to try to go in and help all these people, whether they're on those college campuses, whether they're in the overdose situation, the trafficking, whatever the case might be. And, since you and I have talked on Be the Solution originally, we have really been embraced. We've kicked off the third phase of Be the Solution. Again, the more we can talk about it, we've been able to rescue in the last few years over 300 people right here in the state of Mississippi. 21 of those were children, like infants, 5-year-old, toddler. And so, again, working together, we're making a difference. But you can see cartel, money, all of that coming together. And Mississippi, we're standing really strong to protect these individuals.
Yeah, the number of kids, speaking specifically of those who have come across the border, the number of kids that have been lost in the system, that's sad to hear. But, the thing is, when people think about human trafficking, they do tend to think about the kind that would happen coming across the border. But human trafficking can be in your neighborhood. It could be a desperate family member using a child as a way to make money for drugs or whatever the situation might be. It takes a bunch of different forms. And I think it's important for people to realize that, you have to be aware of what's happening around. And if you see something that doesn't look right, you need to let somebody know it. It does take a lot of different forms, though, doesn't it?
It does. And you brought up an excellent point. Over 50% of these individuals that are trafficked by a family member, someone that they loved and trusted, and then all of a sudden they're caught up in it. And they can't get out. In doing all these rescues and helping these individuals, we don't always keep them the first time. They're kind of brainwashed. They go back into that lifestyle. But then many times, 2 or 3 months later, they'll call and say, I want to get out of this. So we work at it with all of our partners from a holistic perspective. How do we get them counseling, shelter? If they have children, again, how do you help them survive as a family unit? The things that they go through are very emotional, and it's not like it's a one fix. So we know it's going to be a significant time frame to get them to a better place. But, they didn't ask to be on this journey, and they should be able to come back into society with you and I with no shame or blame. And I think it's important as Mississippians, we're making a difference to help do that.
Lynn, it's of course I'm a little conditioned to it because having been in media for most of my career, I've seen the stories, I've seen the heartbreak, I've seen the tragedy of the human condition. But it's still hard to get your head around it. When I think about conversations I have with youth court judges or women's centers, law enforcement, and others, the fact that there is a market for kids, really young kids, literally a market. I mean, like they were potatoes or something. It's unbelievable. It's hard to get your head around that. I personally never get used to it. I'm sure you don't either, but it probably, as the Attorney General, it gives you drive to want to stay focused on it, to keep as many kids safe as possible. Because think of the ones we don't know about.
No, you're absolutely right. And it does. You know, you and I've talked about this. I go out with my teams. So I see these individuals we're rescuing. I'm a part of that. And again, it does give us drive to go, wow, how can we help this individual? What can we do to get them on the right journey? And, you know, we run the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, so ICAC. So we see child exploitation day in and day out, and we are working to bring those individuals down. We work with our partner states. You know, if we see that it's certainly coming across the internet and it's in different states. So we work very diligently. Again, we shouldn't have all these children be exploited like that. We shouldn't have in an operation that, you know, 10 men think they're coming to meet a 14-year-old for sex. It's just unheard of, but it happens, unfortunately. And we just got to keep driving and driving that. You're not going to do that in our state. We're going to have strong laws. We're going to have strong enforcement against you, and we're going to prosecute you.
That's what you got to do. And anyone who would lean toward a child needs to be put away for a very, 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 very long time. And it's sad to see it. I mean, you see these undercover operations where, you know, these grown men are going to meet a 13, 12-year-old, 11-year-old kid to have sex. And it's amazing to me that those kind of people are out there. But that's why we have law enforcement. That's why we have an attorney general who is focused on human trafficking, so we can stop all of that, everything we can find out about. So, hey, when we come back, we'll kind of wind it all up in the final segment in our conversation with Attorney General Lynn Fitch. We'll see you after this break. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. We have the Attorney General for the state of Mississippi, Lynn Fitch, with us today, and I've really enjoyed catching up with her. You know, Lynn, one thing that seems so obvious, and that is that women should play sports with women and men should play sports with men. And look, I have a lot of friends of mine who are Democrats. I have a lot of friends of mine who are Republican. And one thing we all agree on is that this wokeness that's kind of taken over in America right now, no one, they're not for it. Even my Democratic friends think it's the fastest killer of their party that exists today. But it is amazing to me that we're having a conversation about that enabling men to be able to, because they identify as a woman, to be able to compete with women. I just, you know, call me old-fashioned or just call me wanting to be fair, however you want to call it. I don't think we should allow it. So I'm sure you give a lot of thought to that.
Oh, it's significant. You know, you think about it. In 2024, we had to ask the legislature to give us a definition of what is a biological woman, what is the definition of a biological man. Who would have ever thought we'd be in this arena that we needed to have that clarification? But as you said, unfortunately, we do. We're living in a society where they are pushing that. They're pushing that, those boys identifying as girls into our sports, our locker rooms, our dorms, and it's just unacceptable. So Title IX is more prevalent than ever. You know, think about it. For 50 years, we worked so hard to have Title IX in place to give our girls the opportunities to go to universities and colleges and have scholarships and to be a part and be leaders and champions in their own sports. And all of a sudden, it's devastation. They're pushing to have these boys in the locker rooms, in the restrooms, and then to take over in their sports on top of everything. So we now have to work on safe spaces to keep that out, to make a difference. It's very important for me. I filed the first Title IX lawsuit with my friend and colleague, Liz Murrell, who's the AG of Louisiana, because this administration was coming in this summer. They were going to take away all the federal funding if you didn't have the opportunity to have these boys, these men in your locker rooms, in the spaces, that they should never be allowed. You should have a safe space for all of our girls, our women, to be protected. And we won at the first level. We're going to continue to punch on that and keep winning because, as you said, no one thinks this is a good idea. Why should women and girls be devastated? Why should you have a young girl walk into a locker room at a swim meet and there is a 6'2" male in there with everything exposed? We just cannot afford to have that harm happen time and time again to any of our girls or our women.
Yeah, to some people to think that way, you're the one who's backward. It's amazing. But I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, you feel very strongly, as I do, about this subject. I saw recently, I follow my son-in-law's cousin played at Purdue. She's playing professional volleyball these days, but I still follow the team at Purdue because I came to enjoy women's volleyball. And I saw where a collegiate volleyball team recently refused to play another team because it had a male on that team. That's the kind. We've got to start doing more of that, don't we?
We absolutely do. You got to think about Title IX is being dismantled by this administration. And we all worked so diligently to have it in place. And now we're seeing it torn apart, and they're looking for every opportunity to continue to push these transgender individuals, these boys, into girls' sports, into the safe spaces. It should never happen. So we have to, again, stand strong on this. It's not fair. Our young girls, our women work too hard and should not be harmed in any way by them being in our sports and being in our safe spaces.
Yeah, I saw where the whole notion of equity and inclusion had significantly penetrated FEMA even. So, and that's the last place where you should be having a conversation like that when you're dealing with a disaster. Because I mean, you're trying to help everybody, and that should be very clear. But yeah, we've got some issues. And is there any doubt in your mind that if Kamala Harris is elected, that these policies will be continued on steroids?
Oh, I think it'll be full throttle. I think we lose ground for every woman, every girl in our country if that happens. Again, Title IX is so important, and why they want to attack, why they want to take the rights away. I mean, but for me, it's worth it. I'm going to keep fighting with my team. It's worth protecting all of our girls and our women in our state.
Well, listen, I appreciate you spending some time with me. You've got plenty to do in each of your days. And as you pointed out, you've got the largest law firm in Mississippi. So you've got this huge team that you work with every day. It has to be inspiring to you to see your team doing what they do.
Oh, it is. Like I said, every day it's everybody comes together. How do we make a difference? Who do we help? And it's truly working throughout the state to empower and represent those across that certainly need it. And that's part of our responsibility to act and behave as the largest law firm in full representation for all Mississippians.
Listen, we got probably less than a minute to go. Any final comments before we pull it to a close?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to share about the office, because this is truly everyone's office. And as I said earlier, this office touches everyone. And we encourage people to contact us if you have any issues, any concerns, need any connectivity to other agencies or issues. Please call us. Again, that's how we're stronger, is hearing from everyone. And again, certainly if you have any sightings of someone you think might be a human traffic victim or anything along those lines, please let us know, because those tips make a difference.
It really does make a difference. Lynn Fitch, it's been a pleasure to catch up with you, my friend. Listen, have a great day, and keep the incredible aftermath of Hurricane Helene and those who have been impacted in your thoughts and prayers. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.